Hey y'all, this is TCA Gaming, and in this YouTube video, I am going to show you guys some stuff that I got in on consignment, a vintage Yu-Gi-Oh purchase that I made, and then I'm going to open up some Pokemon booster packs. I hope that everyone has been enjoying the lull, if you're buying at least, the lull in the Pokemon prices right now going down. I've noticed a lot of my cases, I've been dipping them back $50, $100 a week or so. Some of them have leveled out. And then also, if you're a seller, maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe you're not looking for uh, prices to slow down or sales to slow down, but it's going to happen this time of year anyways. But we'll see how it goes with the new year. I am excited for some of the opportunities that have come up for sets like Prismatic. I know it's a bummer sometimes to open that set, but just the fact that you can get one of those Evolution God packs, I mean, that's such a cool thing to have opportunity for, especially on the English side. Got these in on consignment. Those are some Japanese CGC cards, and then going all the way back to vintage, very first set English. Got an Arcanine, got Bellsprout in a 10, Charizard. Vintage has been doing really well. Modern, as you know, has been cooling off quite a bit. It's Reshiram and Charizard GX, if I remember correctly. Not Charizard and Reshiram. It's Charizard and Braxton. But with the Reshiram, for some reason, Reshiram comes before the Charizard. There's a couple of SM 211s. Got the Dark Porygon 2. I think I still need this in a first edition English PSA 10 if anybody has one. Got an Executor and an 8 Light Azumarill. You're going to save a lot of money with a card like this if you can buy it in a Mint 9 versus a Gem Mint 10. But that's got a nice swirl on it, first edition. There's a Magikarp 9, and then look at that, first edition PSA 10 Magikarp. Kind of curious to see where that goes. Got Meowth, Pinsir. There's one of the true alternate arts. They're actually labeled with an A in both the number and in symbol. You got the Rayquaza GX or Rayquaza. Was that right? Is that how Pokemon said it was pronounced? Got the Slowking, very tough 10. And then we have 3 Suicunes. All right. Now for the vintage product that I bought. Right here. If you guys know Lewis Vintage Yu-Gi-Oh, one of the most trusted Yu-Gi-Oh sellers that I deal with anyways, I would trust his opinion over mine on whether or not this is a legitimate box. But save 8% here versus star sites. So you got star beside eBay, star beside TCG player. That's pretty cool. But played basketball with this guy. He's pretty tough. Him and Ruxton, they unfortunately wrecked me the last time they visited my house. I'm waiting for some payback on that, but they didn't come last year. Maybe next year. All right, we got the Unlimited Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon. This is the very first set. It's like the base set. It's like the unlimited version. Got the nice white label there. There were several different prints, but this is the one that you want, the earlier print. There is first edition as well, but of course, like with Pokemon, the first edition stamp on the very first set increases the price quite a bit, close to tenfold on something like that. All right, that's pretty much it for what I'm going to show you guys for consignment and what I bought. Do have some other things, just haven't been kind of putting them out there. I did mention earlier the Prismatic Evolutions. I think there are some opportunities with that set. Managed to pick up like surprise boxes and the booster bundles around the $7 mark for boxes and packs. If you come across inventory you want to move at about that price, $7 a pack, it has dropped from 8 down to that now, but that's just kind of where the market is moving. But maybe I can provide some liquidity for you. Feel free to reach out. Anyways, these are the 4 packs we're going to open up. More specialty sets, kind of like what I did before. We did have a really nice 151 pack in a recent opening. Maybe we can do the same. Get something super cool. The Reverse Hollow Charmander. Rainbow Rare. One of the last Rainbow Rares ever printed. Got the Professor's Research. I don't know if they'll be appreciated or not one day, but I remember at a time Primes from Generation 4, you could buy every single Prime for like 30 bucks. Like it was $1 a Prime. I think there's 27 of them, maybe 3 promos, or it's something like that. There wasn't anything that was really expensive. Even the Legends, they were not that expensive. You know, a lot of these cards now are things that people chase in these hard to find, really expensive to open sets. All right. What do we have in this one? Guys, I did hear about BGS. Ooh, look at that. Absol. 2 hits in a row. Getting bought out by collectors. I know there's a lot of opinions already out there, so I'm only going to talk about it briefly just during, while we're opening up these packs here. But man, that pack right there, the seal had already started to break on it. I think it's it's kind of expected at this point. I was a little bit shocked when I saw it. Wasn't expecting BGS to sell out, but if you've watched BGS's numbers and you've ever submitted to them, you know that their product is good. Their cases are great. I really like their cases. They're a different size, which is unique for them to be able to make it in the market. And then their black label does astonishing prices. But you can't really create sets with BGS. You don't have that collection identity that you can have. There aren't many people I know that collect BGS 10 sets or 9s or 9.5s or whatever you want to call it. And then it's almost like black label or bust unless you just really like the case itself. And I know people who are, who do submit because they like the case. 3 hits in a row. We still got 1 pack. See if we can finish out 4 for 4. But their submissions have dwindled. I don't know if they're going to end up like SGC where, their submissions are going to dwindle even more. We'll just have to see. I think PSA has the opportunity to bring things to the table for BGS that they need, like better website, better customer service and tracking of orders, that kind of thing. But is that what's going to happen? I mean, they've extended their turnaround times. It makes me wonder if they're just going to take the employees. I really don't know what's going to go on there. But I hope it turns out for the collectors that still collect BGS and they want to collect BGS. I hope that this is a good thing, for them. I rarely submit to them. I have a few in my collection, but I do occasionally submit because they are a viable option and they hold pretty good prices with their grade. But if this takeover by collectors is an indication that it's going to be like SGC or here, I'm going to make another parallel. Think about when eBay took over TCG Player. A lot of people hoped that they would bring the eBay standard envelope and a lot of other good things to the website. But since that time, they've driven off a lot of buyers and sellers. For me as a seller, I've been driven, or as a buyer who is a seller, I've been driven off because they've taken off tax exemption. Like, why would they do that? Like, it's just been completely pulled off of the website. Wow, look at that. We did go 4 for 4. Got a Blastoise EX. So those were a good set of 4 packs there. And, I'm sure they've brought good things. I'm not that familiar with TCG Player, but I haven't heard good things since they were taken over. And I think there's the capability there, like with that parallel for collectors to bring a lot of good stuff to BGS since they brought them under their wing. But I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll just have to wait and see if it does. Hope it does. But if it doesn't, then you're left with, you got PSA and you've got CGC now, CGC is a far larger company than BGS. I mean, they're into so many other things. They're worth billions, or at least that's what I've heard. They're over $1 billion company. So I don't see, CGC liquidating into being bought out, but who knows, right? So many entities have been bought out already. eBay and PSA have teamed up. You got GameStop, Golden Auctions teams up with them. You got Fanatics and CGC. With their, it gets sent to CG or can be sent to CGC. Even now, when I go to buy something on eBay, I don't know if you guys have noticed, the default isn't to just have it shipped to you. There's a big blue button that says send to the PSA vault. It's like, so every card that's over like $200 or is graded is either going to go through authentication with PSA, then possibly be vaulted by PSA, and sold by PSA, and then possibly revaulted and resold, and just perpetually stay on their platform or be sold out through PSA to someone else who might put it in a slab. It could be resold on eBay. I mean, it's just like this big circle right now with raw cards and graded cards. And the monopoly, I think the reason this whole BGS and PSA thing stood out so much was because it represents like a monopoly that's just getting bigger. And we already knew that there was, there's certain monopolies that we see, at least within grading and trading cards. eBay and PSA, they're huge, but they're picking up, other sites. They're picking up other companies. They're picking up ways that you utilize to grade cards to increase the value, and then they're part of the buying process. They're part of the selling process. They're part of the authentication process. They're part of the grading process. They're part of the moving process from one place to another, or storage. And then once you have a card that goes into a vault, you're going to pay to get it out. You're going to pay to if you had it graded through them, you're going to pay for that grading fee. You're going to pay to have it withdrawn or to sell it. And so there's a fee that's going to be associated with everything. So they're going to be constantly winning out on that front. And does it mean that we're going to have lower prices? Usually not. If sometimes a monopoly is a good thing. Think about Netflix when it first came out. It was like what? It was almost free. Some people I think did get it for free, but it was like super cheap, and you could get access to almost everything through streaming. And now, instead of it being a monopoly, you have Disney taking their cut. You've got all these different Paramount Pluses, and now you have to pay a subscription fee for a section of TV. So you have access to much less, and now you got to have like 8 different subscriptions if you want to have everything. And so, and even within that, now you got to watch commercials too. So it's like we're going back to cable TV. So a monopoly can be good for the consumer, unless there is no other option. Cable would have been another option at the time, but it was so expensive that people just went with Netflix. And it was a really good deal, and it was that way for a little bit. We had this short window of time where we were watching whatever we wanted for almost nothing, with no advertisements. And now it's just kind of shifted to where if you want to watch something, you're going to have to go, like you might have to go to Hulu, then to Netflix, and then Peacock, and Paramount Plus has to be an add-on, and then you got Disney who bought out Hulu, and you got Star Wars that's a subsidiary. I mean, I can't explain all of it, but it's kind of like that with what we see going on with the grading cards and collectibles and sports and all that other stuff. So whether you like it or not, CGC still being standalone away from PSA, that's a good thing. It creates competition. It creates a way to keep pressure on both companies to remain loyal to the customer, but also to prices, and to provide a good service. Otherwise, if CGC wasn't getting, say they were getting only 50,000 submissions or whatever it might be a month, rather than the 500,000, which I know some of those numbers, they can be skewed. Same thing with PSA, how much is going through GameStop or eBay or whatever. If there was no real competition, then they would just continue to raise prices. And right now we've seen prices raise up again by both companies, but what's stopping them from going up again? It's pretty much the other company. Like if PSA went to $30 a card, I would see a significant shift to CGC for pretty much anything that's valued under $100. Like, what would be the point in a 10 at least? What would be the point of taking that risk? Sending to PSA. But if CGC wasn't there, you've got no other competition. So maybe that's what would happen. Maybe the lower PSA graded cards would get bought out, and then our new floor for graded cards is going to change. We saw that happen during the pandemic when there were no option to get graded cards. I mean, I could sell anything, and there were people reaching out to me telling me, I don't care what the graded card is, if it's PSA graded, CGC, whatever it is, I will pay $40 a card, no matter what the grade. Didn't matter. It was just they were trying to bulk buy it, and then even for a while after that, you could still bulk sell them for $20 to places like Troll and Toad. I think they were 18 or something like that, but they buy as much as you want. Like I had places reaching out to me like, sell me whatever you got. This is the price I'll pay. And I moved a lot of bulk that way. And now, I mean, you can find graded cards for $5 or less in auction. Like I just sold, I told you guys about a PSA graded card for like 99 cents or something like that. But anyways, I told you guys I was only going to talk for a minute. I've got a lot to say about this subject. Whether or not it's right, I mean, no one really knows what's going on with PSA, BGS, the reasons the BGS sold versus the reasons PSA bought. If I was PSA, I think it's a good move. I think it's a great move for them. They're buying out a whole nother company, or Collectors. Collectors is buying out a whole nother company, and they're getting access to basically everything, that entails running their business, their customers, acquisitions, their employees, all that stuff. Um, but on the collector side, it does worry me. How much control will PSA or collectors eventually have, in the trading card space? We need to have healthy, good competition to keep everyone in line. That's why I've always said that I don't mind advertising for people that sell on eBay that I really like, that I believe that are good business. Dan, Catch 'em All Collectibles, Z and G, Old School Pokemon, people I've dealt with for years that I know are legitimate businesses. They're going to treat you right. Good competition is good for the hobby. And without that, then you see when people have an opportunity because they own the entire business, they're going to take advantage of that because, that's just supply, demand. It's this economics is involved in all this. But again, I keep saying I'm going to stop, but there's a lot to unbox here with this single buyout, in my opinion. And it's been interesting. I've listened to a few people talk about it in their YouTube videos, but I try to let my thoughts come out first and I process them first before I start listening to everyone else, because then I feel like that becomes my opinion. It's like an echo chamber. So if you're listening to this and you haven't already formulated your own kind of like due diligence on thinking about things, maybe just stop, think about it before you get too deep into the weeds, because it is definitely an interesting move that has happened, and I think is bigger than the numbers might indicate for because BGS has been around for so long and they've got a foothold in Magic and other places, and their value is there for the grade because they've been around for so long. There's just so much going on here. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I realized, I didn't say it was going to be this long at the beginning of it, but hope you guys are having a great week and Merry Christmas.